Welcome to Interludes with Chris Mackenzie. And today, another very special day in the studio with me, Anne Phelan, actress.
Hello.
Of some considerable note.
Oh, I don't know
Memorable.
what note, though, baby.
I just want you to talk. I don't want to have to say anything.
Okay, right. Okay. Now give us a bit of a clue.
Yes, well, I want to know, if you to start, how old were you when you started to act? 3 or 4, or was it 7.5?
No. I was one of those, I had no intention, I had no desire, I had no knowledge of acting. We're a musical family, you know. Saturday night round the piano at Phelan's was always the go, and Mum played piano. Dad used to play a little squeeze box thing, and both brothers, I have older brothers, Barry and Peter, both great singers, and it's actually fate. I'm a fatalist. What happened was I got a phone call one night. I was around about 15, 16. And yes, I had left school. I'd left school the minute I could. I hated school. And I got a phone call from a total stranger. His name was Kevin Doherty. And Kevin was with the Samaritan Light Opera Company.
Oh, yeah.
And he wanted to use the hall that they rehearsed in for an extra night, the church hall. I was captain of the badminton team, and we used the same hall. And he had rung the parish priest and said, "Can we have the hall?" And the parish priest had said, "Well, it's fine with me, but you better check with Anne Phelan, because I don't know what days the team practice and play there." So this guy rang, and I said, "No, we're not using the hall on that particular night. That's fine." And he said, "Phelan," he said, "are you related to Barry and Peter?" And I said, "Yes, they're my older brothers." And he said, "If you're a Phelan, you can sing." He said, "I went to school with your brothers, and they were both at Parade, and they were both singers, and they were actually, because they're a lot older than me, I'll say, they won't be listening, they were actually in St Pat's choir during the war.
All right.
When the Vienna Boys Choir were here. Yeah. And then war broke out and they had to stay here. Yeah. And of course some of them have stayed here ever since. There's 5 or 6 of them kept singing here in a group. And these are men now in their 60s, mid to late 60s. And my brothers were both in St Pat's choir at that point.
Right.
So they actually became part of that extraordinary choir that joined up with the Vienna Boys Choir. Oh. And so, yes, they could sing. And then we're at school and they won a Stedfords and all of that. And I don't think either of them ever thought about doing it professionally, but they could have. Anyway, that amazing coincidence is that Kevin went to school with my brothers. He said, "We need chorus members. You can sing, we need chorus members." I actually didn't know what he was talking about. We weren't a theatrical family. Mum and Dad, went to the TIV in the TIV days, and we went to the pictures and we went to the drive-in. That was pretty good. And that was really, I think I'd been to maybe one live show. And so he said, and it turned out that there was a girl I went to school with. And he said, "She lives up the road from you. Why don't you come with her?" So I did. I wandered up to St Mary's Church Hall in West Melbourne and joined the back row of the chorus of Kismet, which, of course, is why I've picked one of the songs I've picked today. But and that was it. I then sort of loved it. I had a ball, and it was a hobby. It was a great hobby. And I progressed to leading roles in amateur musicals. And then a friend rang up and said, "Do you want to do a play and get paid for it?" And I thought, "Oh, that's great. Getting paid for your hobby. I'll do that." And it was I Do. And it was after the Jill Perryman production for JCW's. And it's the two-hander based on the four-poster. It's a lovely, lovely musical. And the Cottage Theatre in Adelaide were doing it. And they asked for me. So because a friend I'd worked in amateur theatre with and whatever, connections and people being in the right place at the right time. So I went across to Adelaide to do I Do, which was supposed to be, I think, about a 12-week job, and it turned out to be 8 months it ran.
Good grief.
And And then I got another job in Adelaide because they thought I was from Adelaide. And then I said, I'll have living away allowance, thank you. And they went, because I said, I'm actually from Melbourne. And it was to replace Joan Bruce as Frau Kost in Cabaret. And it was the cabaret that it had initially started in Perth with John Ewing and Nancy Hayes. And then it was in Sydney with, and her name's gone right out of my head.
It happens.
She was married to John Mallion, and she played Sally Bowles. And then by the time it went to Adelaide, Joan Bruce, who was based in Sydney, couldn't do it. So I took over as Frau Kost in Cabaret. So I was sort of away from Melbourne, and I was 21 at the time, I think, 21. And I was away for about 10 months, and then I got home. I was still living at Mum and Dad's. And I got home and I was sort of an actress. And
what a joke.
And I thought, well, I'll just hang around until someone actually blows my cover. So 35 years later, I'm still waiting for someone to blow my cover.
Oh, dear. Well, now listen, we're going to listen to the Samaritan Choir, I think.
No, it's not. This is actually,
Why not? Why not?
This is Anthony Warlow.
I think we should be. Haven't you got one of the Samaritans?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh, Lord.
This is Anthony Warlow, who I've got a lot of time for. I think he's a great talent. And the reason I've picked this is the story I've just told, of course, Kismet, Fate, all of that. Plus, the MD on this CD, the musical director on the CD was the late, great Brian Stacey, the conductor, who I had the absolute pleasure and privilege of working with on Sweeney Todd. For the Queensland Theatre Company, I played Mrs. Lovett there.
Okay, we'll get back to that.
And
Can we just listen to this now?
Listen to Fate.
That's right, yeah.
Anthony Warlow.
Okay.
I sat down feeling desolated, bowed my head and crossed my knees. Is fortune really predicated upon such tiny terms as these? Then fate's a thing without a head, a puzzle never understood, and man proceeds where he is led, unguaranteed of bad or good. Fate can be the trap in your path, the bitter cup of your tears, your wine of wrath. Fate can be shade in a desert blaze, sudden food in a famine found, the sound of praise, incomprehensible and strange. Fate can play a trick with a twine to weave the evil and good in one design. And so my destiny, I look at you and cannot see. Is it good? Is it ill? Am I blessed? Am I cursed? Is it honey on my tongue or brine? What fate is mine? Fate can play a trick without wine, to weave the evil and good in one design. And so my destiny, I look at you and cannot see. Is it good? Is it ill? Am I blessed? Am I cursed? Is it honey on my tongue or brine? What fate is
Anthony Warlow.
What about that note?
How about that, eh?
Oh, he nails that note.
Can you reach that note?
I can reach it, but I wouldn't nail it the way he does. I remember Brian Stacey, as we were talking about, the wonderful musical director, who is the musical director on that CD. And at his memorial service, because for those who might have forgotten, he was the musical director on, what was that show? you know, the Hollywood show with Deborah Byrne and Hugh Jackman. Sunset Boulevard, and was killed on his motorbike.
Oh, right, yes.
2 days before it opened.
Yep.
And he's a wonderful man. He was a wonderful man. The thing about Brian was he had a great love of music, and there was no elitism about his music. So he would quite happily go from opera to ballet to the Melbourne Symphony to musical comedy, and he actually believed it was all everything had its own merits. And at his memorial service, when Anthony Warlow was introduced, Brian had been heard to say, conducting Anthony Warlow is like driving a Rolls Royce.
Ah,
isn't that a love? And it is true.
What a lovely thing to say.
Yeah.
Anthony Warlow must have been very chuffed about that.
He was, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're lurking in the wings, waiting to be discovered again.
Now you mean?
Yes. No. Then I mean, you know, you.
Then
done your tour.
you're going chronologically. Okay.
Well, I mean, you know, unless you want to leap forward.
No, I don't mind. I forget where I've been. Yes, well, and then I sort of got a job at St Martin's Theatre under the leadership of Renee Mitchell.
I was going to say Renee Mitchell, yeah.
Yeah, and so Renee, she's also dead now, but Renee was a major part of getting me on the right track. Great woman. So I finished up doing about 5 shows down there in the 12 months. And then it was like, well, I really am an actress, I think. And then I just sort of doing that, you know, I did those odd things, like I did Homicide and Division 4 and Matlock and all of that. And probably my first, I mean, I'm very lucky because there are a million good actors out there who never get that break in television and consequently remain, although jobbing actors, and I call myself a jobbing actor, they're just not known. But even though they work constantly, perhaps in theatre or cabaret or whatever, unfortunately, television is the thing that brings you into people's lounge rooms, for good or for bad. And I was very lucky that around about that time I went into Bellbird.
Oh, right.
And I was actually in Bellbird for 4 years. So I was one of the lucky few of my age group who had soapy television experience at that early age. And also, too, it was a great nursery. I mean, I worked with some extraordinary people.
Wasn't Bev Dunn in that, too?
Beverly Dunn was there, Alan Hopgood, Terry Norris. Just an amazing Maury Fields.
Why did it ever stop?
It had been running 10 years and I don't know. I mean, you know, that's a long time ago, and the person who produced it went on to produce Country Practice.
Ah.
So, and then, of course, I think Blue Heelers has sort of really taken over from there. There's always, and that's where Something in the Air was fantastic. It should have been the next Bellbird, and it should have run for 10 years. But
yes,
ABC Politics put paid to that. So it was when that whole Jonathan Shire thing happened, and the new regime came in and decided to. Well, I call it marking their territory, like tomcats, really. And that's what they did, and they sort of turfed out a lot of stuff that they shouldn't have turfed out. But then fate again, you know, it's if Something in the Air was still going, I wouldn't have done the play Mavis Goes to Timor, which I did recently, which was just a wonderful experience. And I wouldn't... You know, there's a few things I probably couldn't have done. I wouldn't have done martial law, and that was good fun too. Anyway, going back to all of that... So one door closed,
another open?
Yeah, always. All those
time.
cliches, they are very true, most of them.
Aren't they?
And, so that's what happened. I was at St Martin's for a while, then the Bellbird thing kicked in. And because I can sing, I was lucky. I did a lot of review. I worked at Tiki and John's. I was one of the original Glitter Sisters.
Really?
That John Finlayson and
that's
Gary
right.
Down wrote and produced. And that was in the 70s. And we were supposed to run, it was a little show that was supposed to run 8 weeks out at Nunawading. And we finished up doing 14 months, and we did the 8 weeks at Nunawading, but we moved to the Chevron. And we were at the Chevron for, a long time, months, nearly a year. And we were sort of flavour of the month for a while. And it was great fun. And I was doing Tiki and John's after that. And a lot of plays. I've been lucky. Done lots of wonderful plays. Did a big stint at MTC there for a while in the John Sumner days, which was great. And, of course, it's, MTC's 50th birthday this year. And so that was all squeaky chair that was. Squeaky chairs in radio studios. So,
I think they think they go together, don't they?
Yeah,
Squeaky
they do.
chairs and radio studios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, just plodding along. But I've been lucky that I've had, every so often I get a high-profile television job. And that does make a difference. I hate to say it does. I mean, now at the Melbourne Theatre Company, you can hardly get a job there unless you're a Hollywood movie star.
Really?
Well, you look at the people that have got the lead roles, and I hope we're not going back to the days where, you know, once upon a time you had to go to England.
Yes.
And you had to have a posh English accent to get work in Australia. I fear that it's becoming a bit like now you have to go and do a movie in Hollywood before you're accepted here. And I hope it doesn't go all that way, but you only have to look at, the problem is people who put up the money, especially for films,
Yep.
they want a name.
Yep.
They want a name. And I hope we don't get this sort of chip on our shoulder now that, like we did in the 40s and 50s, where all our actors went to England.
Yeah, they just disappeared en masse.
They either disappeared or you had to go to England and come back to say, I'd been to England, therefore you were accepted here. And I really have a fear that, you know, we're heading down that same track.
That would be sad. Can we listen to something, another bit of music? It might cheer you up a little
okay.
bit. I mean, you're about to burst into tears.
No, I'm not at all. This is Judy Small. I'm a great fan of Judy Smalls. I think she's one of the most underrated performer-songwriters in this country. And this is a song about me, really. Well, it could be about me.
The family maiden aunt.
The family maiden aunt.
Gone now the years of my halcyon 20s, and 30s are looming, alarming ahead, and family members have started their sighing indulgently at me and shaking their heads. 'Cause here I am, the family maiden aunt. Oh, isn't it sad? Marriage hopes are fading, aunt. The lonely future expectation laden, aunt. Well, I wonder what on earth's to become of me now. My cousins and siblings in wedded bliss settled, between them ex-spouses and about 50 kids. And me, I'm still single without any prospects, a very sure sign that me life's on the skids. And here I am, the family maiden aunt. Oh, isn't it sad? Marriage hopes are fading, aunt. The lonely future expectation laden, aunt. Well, I tell you what, I wouldn't swap it for quids. 'Cause who do you think it is who's always got the time to play at gatherings of the family clan extended? And who delights in sharing all the magic of their day and gets to give them back again at night? Yes, it's me, the family maiden aunt. Oh, isn't it sad? Marriage hopes are fading, aunt. The lonely future expectation laden, aunt. Well, I tell you what, I wouldn't swap it for quids. 'Cause who do you think it is that gets to take them to the zoo or ferry them to Manly for a fun day? And who delights in doing all the things they love to do and still gets to give them back at night? Yes, it's me, the family maiden aunt. Oh, isn't it sad? Marriage hopes are fading, aunt. Oh, well, there's nothing about me life that I'd be trading, aunt. I tell you what, I wouldn't swap it for quids.
No, I don't know anything about Judy Small.
Well,
Talk
you'll have
about
to
her.
be introduced. There's about, she lives in Frankston now.
Yes, all right.
Actually, a lot of other Australian and overseas folk singers sing her songs.
Oh.
Eric Bogle sings her songs. She sings Eric Bogle's. But a prolific songwriter and a wonderful songwriter for she gets to the heart of women's stuff. There's even on that album, that CD. What's that one called? It's called Judy Small, One Voice in the Crowd.
Yep.
And we have a bit of a mutual admiration society going because I love her work and she loves mine, and I'm hoping one day to be able to include some of her music in something that I want to do. So, but she gets to the core of a lot of things, and she was one of the first writers to write about reconciliation and refugees, and just
wonderful.
great singer-songwriter.
Great. So we can continue for another few minutes before we have to wind this little show up. The fact that you are now a star of stage screen, but the little screen more than almost anything else, as far as the
public is concerned. I'm actually currently unemployed. I'm featuring I'm featuring at Centrelink at the moment, but that's the go. I mean, the report came out only a few days ago. What is it that over 50% of Australian artists, and that's visual and performing arts, and painters and ceramic artists and whatever, over 50% earn less than $7,000 per year from their art. Wow. And our union figures are 90% of any actor at any given time is out of work. So the fact that I'm at Centrelink is not all that unusual. It just, there is a perception though, especially with television, that
you're all rich.
You're rich,
of
and
course.
That you're in work all the time.
Yep.
People only have to see a performance, a guest appearance on Blue Heelers, and it stays with them. It's really interesting, but in actual fact, that might have been 2 days' work.
And it might have been made 6 months ago.
Well, it probably was made
Yes.
6 months ago. Yeah. So I'm currently on the dole. But that's that
It
happens.
has happened before. The way you talk about it.
In the last 12 months, I've worked 4 months in my industry.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I had 3 months with Mavis Goes to Timor and 1 month recently with Tune In Tomorrow. But people go, but Mavis Goes to Timor, and you go, no, it was only actually 3 months' work, and that 3 months is well and truly over. But that's, I have a whinge occasionally and then I get over it. But I think when it gets to me is when there's a public perception that you're rolling in money.
Yeah.
Someone said to me the other day, I called into a cafe where I live and I was having a bowl of soup. And they asked me, and I said, I'm actually out of work at the moment. And they said, that must come as a big relief sometimes. And I went, no. I said, it actually is a worry because I've got no money. And he looked at me as if I was pulling his leg. And this is a mature, intelligent
Crying
man.
Poor when we know we've got a lot of money.
Exactly. And that's when it, because I want to say to them, look, I couldn't get the dole if I had all the money you think I've got, because the dole cuts out if you've got a certain amount of money in the bank. So it's quite easy when you've got no money in the bank.
But you had a good tour recently. You only came back a little while ago, didn't you?
See, this is what I'm saying.
Yes,
Isn't this
that's
really
right,
interesting?
yes.
A good little tour. Would you mean Tune In Tomorrow?
Yes, Tune In Tomorrow.
Well, in actual fact, that was 4 weeks' work, and
That's
that
right.
included rehearsal.
Right, yeah.
And the
It's
tour,
just 4 weeks. It's
yeah, and that's finished and gone, and the week and a half rehearsal. It was great, by the way.
Was it?
It was fantastic. It went really, really
because the
well.
last time I spoke to you, it was you were about to start at Capers and have fun and games there, and it sounded like it was an absolute
It was,
hoot.
and the regional tour went so well because we actually did either morning or afternoon shows. I mean, packed. Geelong Performing Arts Centre holds well over 800, and we were chock-a-block.
Really?
At 10:30 in the morning. And
Wonderful.
people loved it, yeah.
Isn't that great? But why does a tour like that end when you're that popular?
Well, you can't just keep... I mean, these things have to be planned so far in advance. So no one can pick. If everyone could pick what was going to work and what wasn't, we'd all be very successful. The thing is, I think it's probably got legs, what we call it's got legs. It might happen again next year.
Oh,
but
right.
the logistics, because you can't just say, OK, Geelong want it, so you go to Geelong. Because you can't you can't get your cast together for one performance. The logistics of actually arranging a tour where you hire your cast for, say, 3 weeks. And in that 3 weeks, all your country towns have to fit in. And so the logistics are enormous. So it can take 6 months to organise something like that.
Yeah. Okay, well, listen, we've barely scratched the surface of your extraordinary, not extraordinary, but extra.
Oh, I don't
ordinary
think
life.
so.
I'd want to know.
Pretty normal.
Will you come back and can
I'd
we
love
continue?
to. Yeah.
Okay. Terrific.
I'll continue from that sentence.
Good.
Even.
You're on. Bye-bye for now. You've been listening to Interludes with Chris Mackenzie.